The massive ship floated in the dark space between stars. Its metal hull stretched for miles, covered in weapon ports and shield generators. Inside the command center, alien beings with blue skin and 4 arms stood around the glowing table. They were the Zilithians, rulers of 47 star systems. Emperor Kethver studied the holographic display with his large black eyes. The image showed a small blue planet orbiting a yellow star. Earth, the aliens called it. His military advisors whispered excitedly around him. The intercepted transmission came from this system, said General Vextar, pointing at the planet with one of his 4 hands. The signal is primitive. They use electromagnetic waves for communication. Emperor Kethver nodded slowly. In over 300 years of conquest, the Zilithian Empire had never met a species that still used such basic technology. Most civilized races had moved to quantum communication centuries before they achieved space travel. What do our analysts say about their military capability? The Emperor asked. Commander Zilvik stepped forward. Her uniform displayed dozens of medals from successful conquests. Minimal threat, Your Majesty. Our scouts detected crude chemical rockets and simple satellites. No energy shields, no plasma weapons, no faster-than-light technology. They appear to be pre-space civilization. The Emperor's 4 arms crossed behind his back as he walked around the display table. The hologram rotated slowly, showing Earth's continents and oceans. Yet they sent a message to the stars. What did it contain? Mathematical formulas, star charts, and images of their species, General Vextar replied. They call themselves humans. Bipedal, single-hearted, with only 2 arms. The message seems to be a greeting, hoping to make contact with other intelligent life. A soft laugh echoed through the command center. The Emperor's advisors joined in. In their experience, species that invited contact were either very powerful or very naive. The evidence suggested these humans fell into the second category. How many worlds have we conquered that welcomed us with open arms? Commander Zilthik asked with amusement. 17, replied the Emperor. And how many of those put up any real resistance? None, Your Majesty. Emperor Kethver studied the planet again. Earth looked peaceful from space. Blue oceans reflected sunlight. White clouds swirled through the atmosphere, and green and brown continents showed signs of civilization. The planet had 3 large landmasses and several smaller ones. Primitive cities dotted the surface, connected by simple transportation networks. Their population? The Emperor inquired. Approximately 8 billion individuals, General Vextar answered, spread across 7 major landmasses. They appear to be divided into separate political groups called nations. Our translators identified over 200 different languages. This information pleased the Emperor. Divided species were always easier to conquer. When planets fought among themselves, they rarely united against outside threats until it was too late. Perfect. Internal conflict will make our task simpler. He turned to face his military staff. Prepare the 12th Conquest Fleet. Standard protocol applies. Commander Zilthik saluted with all 4 arms. Size of the fleet, Your Majesty? 50 ships should be more than sufficient for a pre-space civilization. Include 2 dreadnoughts, 15 cruisers, 20 destroyers, and 13 support vessels. We want to make an impression, but there is no need for excessive force. The military advisors exchanged satisfied looks. 50 ships represented a small force by Zilithian standards, but it was more firepower than most primitive worlds could comprehend. The 12th Fleet had conquered 8 systems without losing a single vessel. Deployment strategy? Asked General Vextar. Emperor Kethver moved his 4 hands in a practice gesture. Standard approach. Position the fleet in high orbit around their planet. Broadcast surrender demands to their leaders. Give them 72 hours to respond with formal capitulation. And if they refuse? Commander Zilthik asked, though she already knew the answer. Demonstrate our superiority with targeted strikes against military installations. Avoid population centers initially. We need workers for the mining operations. The Emperor paused, studying the hologram once more. These humans will follow the same pattern as every other species. Fear, negotiation, surrender, integration. The command center buzzed with activity as officers began preparing orders for the fleet. Navigation computers plotted the course to the human system. Weapon systems underwent final checks. Troop transports prepared landing parties for the eventual occupation. Your Majesty, General Vextar said, approaching the Emperor privately. Our intelligence suggests humans engage in significant warfare among themselves. Multiple conflicts across their planet. Should this concern us? Emperor Kethver's forearms waved dismissively. Internal warfare among primitive species is common. They fight with chemical explosives and metal projectiles. Such weapons cannot penetrate our shields or damage our hull armor. Their primitive conflicts actually benefit us. How so, Your Majesty? Species that fight each other rarely unite against a common enemy. We will contact their strongest nations first, offer them superiority over their enemies in exchange for cooperation. Standard division tactics. Commander Zilthik returned with final fleet preparations. The 12th Fleet reports ready for departure, Your Majesty. Estimated travel time to the human system is 18 days. Excellent. Emperor Kethver took one last look at Earth, spinning in the holographic display. Signal the fleet to depart. And Commander? Yes, Your Majesty? Instruct Captain Rexdol to prepare the standard surrender ceremony. I expect we will meet it within a week of arrival. The command center fell silent as the Emperor left for his private chambers. Around the hologram table, his advisors continued planning the conquest of Earth. They discussed troop deployments, resource extraction schedules, and integration timelines. None of them questioned whether the humans would surrender. In 3 centuries of expansion, no primitive species had ever successfully resisted the Zilithian Empire. The hologram of Earth continued rotating slowly, its blue oceans and green continents looking peaceful and defenseless. The aliens could not know that on that distant planet, 8 billion humans were about to receive their first contact with an alien civilization. And those humans were about to show the Zilithians that some species did not follow standard patterns. The Zilithian fleet arrived at Earth exactly 18 days later. 50 massive ships dropped out of hyperspace and took position around the planet. Captain Rexdol stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching Earth grow larger on the main screen. Beautiful planet, commented his second-in-command, Lieutenant Yeldar. Primitive, but beautiful. Captain Rexdol nodded. After conquering 8 worlds, he had developed an appreciation for untouched planets. Soon this one would join the Empire, its resources flowing to Zilithian colonies across the galaxy. Communications open a channel to the planet's surface. All frequencies. Channel open. Captain. Rexdol straightened his uniform and activated the recording device. His message would be broadcast to every human communication system on Earth. Television, radio, internet, military networks, all would receive the same announcement. People of Earth, I am Captain Rexdol of the Zilithian Empire. We represent a galactic civilization spanning 47 star systems. Your planet has been selected for integration into our empire. You have 72 hours to surrender unconditionally. We require your political and military leaders to acknowledge our authority and submit formal documents of capitulation. Resistance will result in the destruction of your military forces and significant loss of life. We await your response. The transmission ended. Now came the waiting period. In Rexdol's experience, primitive species needed time to panic, argue among themselves, and eventually accept their fate. "Deploy sensor drones to monitor their military installations," he ordered. "I want to know the location of every weapon, every soldier, every government building." The drones scattered across Earth's atmosphere, invisible to human detection systems. Within hours, they had mapped every military base, every ship, every aircraft on the planet. The data surprised Captain Rexdal. "Lieutenant, review these sensor readings." Yeldar studied the information flowing across his screens. "Captain, these humans possess more military installations than we anticipated. And their weapons, some are more advanced than expected." "Explain." "They have explosive devices capable of destroying entire cities. Underwater vessels that can remain hidden for months. Flying machines that move faster than sound. Their military forces number in the tens of millions." Captain Rexdal frowned. The weapons were still primitive by Zilithian standards, but more dangerous than their initial intelligence suggested. "Numbers mean nothing against superior technology. Continue monitoring." On Earth's surface, the message had indeed caused panic, but not the kind Rexdal expected. Government leaders around the world worked frantically to coordinate a response. Unlike previous conquests, however, these leaders were not kings or emperors safe in their palaces. They were elected officials accountable to their people. In the Pentagon, General Sarah Mitchell studied satellite images of the alien fleet. Marine Colonel James Rodriguez sat across from her, still wearing his combat uniform from a training exercise. 50 ships, she said quietly, each one bigger than our largest aircraft carrier. "Ma'am, what's our response timeline?" Rodriguez asked. "Officially? The UN Security Council is meeting in 6 hours to draft a reply." "Unofficially?" She looked directly at the Marine officer. "How fast can you get your boys to the International Space Station?" Rodriguez checked his watch. 48 hours if we push hard." "Why?" "Because I don't think these aliens understand who they're dealing with." Similar conversations were happening around the world. In Russia, Spetsnaz commandos received sealed orders. In Britain, SAS teams prepared for immediate deployment. In Israel, Mossad operatives activated sleeper protocols. The humans were not preparing to surrender. 60 hours into the deadline, Captain Rexdal received the human response. He expected a formal document of surrender from Earth's highest leaders. Instead, a simple message appeared on his communication screen. "This is Staff Sergeant Carlos Martinez, United States Marine Corps, speaking for the people of Earth. We reject your surrender demand. If you want our planet, come and take it." Rexdal stared at the screen in confusion. "Lieutenant, verify this transmission." "Verified, Captain." It originated from a military facility in North America. "Where are their political leaders?" "Their head of state?" "We specifically requested formal capitulation documents." Lieutenant Yeldar checked the translation systems. "Captain, our analysis suggests his Marine sergeant is not a political leader. He appears to be a low-ranking military officer." "Impossible. No civilized species would allow military subordinates to speak for their planet." Rexdal turned to his communication officer. "Send another message. Demand to speak with Earth's Emperor or Supreme Leader." The reply came back within an hour. "This is Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Chung, United States Army Rangers. We don't have emperors. We elect our leaders, and they asked us to handle this situation. Your move, alien boy." Rexdal's forearms trembled with anger. These humans were either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. Prepare bombing runs against their major military installations. Precision strikes only. We will teach them proper respect. The first Dilithian attack came at dawn. Energy beams from orbit struck military bases around the world. Rexdal expected immediate surrender after this demonstration of superior firepower. Instead, the human response shocked him. From the smoking ruins of an Air Force base, another transmission arrived. This is Captain Mike Thompson, U.S. Air Force. Nice shooting. Our turn now. What happened next violated every pattern of conquest in Zilithian history. Instead of surrendering, the humans launched every satellite they had into space. Not communication satellites or weather monitors. Military satellites armed with nuclear weapons. Incoming missiles, shouted the sensor operator. Multiple launches from the planet's surface. Impossible, Rexdol said. Our intelligence indicated they had no space-based weapons. Sir, they're using their own satellites as kinetic weapons. They're ramming our perimeter ships. The human strategy was insane by Zilithian standards. They were sacrificing expensive equipment for minimal damage to the alien fleet. But it sent a clear message. These humans would fight with everything they had. Then came the next surprise. While Rexdal was dealing with the satellite attacks, his sensors detected small human ships approaching the fleet. Primitive chemical rockets that should have been detected and destroyed easily. How did those vessels get past our perimeter? Rexdal demanded. Sir, they're not coming from Earth. They're coming from that small space station we ignored. And from their moon. Rexdal realized his mistake. The humans had people already in space, while his attention was focused on the planet. They had launched from positions he had not monitored. Destroy those ships immediately. Sir, we're trying, but they're using some kind of stealth technology. They appear and disappear from our sensors. The truth was simpler and more terrifying. The humans were not using advanced stealth technology. They were using tactics. The small ships approached from multiple directions, using the planet and moon as cover, moving unpredictably. When Zilithian weapons locked onto them, they changed course and scattered. This is Master Sergeant Lisa Park, U.S. Space Force, requesting permission to board your vessels for inspection purposes. Rexdal watched in disbelief as human soldiers in primitive spacesuits attached explosive devices to his ship's hulls. These humans were actually trying to board Zilithian vessels using nothing but determination and improvised weapons. All ships, emergency protocols. Repel boarders. For the first time in 3 centuries of conquest, the Zilithian Empire found itself fighting an enemy that refused to follow the rules. Emperor Kethver received Captain Rexdal's emergency transmission with growing alarm. The holographic image showed the 12th Fleet in chaos. 3 ships had suffered hull breaches from human boarding parties. 2 destroyers were completely offline after primitive nuclear devices had been attached to their engines. Explain this disaster. Captain, the Emperor said. His forearms crossed in anger. Rexdal's image flickered on the communication screen. Behind him, alarms wailed and emergency lights flashed red. Your Majesty, these humans do not fight according to established patterns. They use suicide tactics and refuse to surrender even when facing impossible odds. Impossible odds? You have 50 ships against a pre-space civilization. That is what our intelligence indicated, Your Majesty. But these humans were already in space when we arrived. They have weapons platforms we did not detect. And they're military leaders. Rexdal paused, still struggling to understand what he had witnessed. They lead their troops personally into battle. Emperor Kethver's large black eyes narrowed. What do you mean? The human who organized the boarding parties was a master sergeant. She piloted her own assault craft and was first to board our vessel. When we captured her, she refused to reveal military secrets and attempted to activate another explosive device. This information disturbed the Emperor greatly. In Zilithian culture, military leaders commanded from safe positions. They sent others to fight while they made strategic decisions from protected locations. The idea of a commander personally leading an attack was completely foreign. Send reinforcements immediately, Rexdal continued. I request the 4th and 7th battle fleets. These humans require overwhelming force to subdue. You are asking for 150 additional ships to conquer a primitive planet. Yes, Your Majesty. I have never encountered an enemy like this. Emperor Kethver ended the transmission and called an emergency meeting of his war council. Within an hour, his greatest military minds had assembled in the palace strategy room. The situation at Earth requires analysis, the Emperor announced. Our 12th Fleet is requesting massive reinforcements to subdue a pre-space civilization. General Vexstar studied the battle reports on his personal display. Your Majesty, these humans appear to be a warrior species. They'd prioritize fighting ability over technological advancement. Explain. They possess weapons capable of destroying their own planet, yet they still fight with primitive equipment. This suggests they value combat effectiveness over efficiency. Such species are dangerous, but predictable. Commander Zilfat disagreed. The reports indicate unpredictable behavior, not typical warrior patterns. These humans use tactics we have never encountered, such as they sacrifice expensive equipment for minimal strategic gain. They allow low-ranking soldiers to make important decisions. They refuse to surrender even when defeat is certain. She paused, reading directly from Rexdal's report. One human soldier detonated explosives while still inside our ship, destroying himself and 23 of our crew members. The War Council fell silent. Suicide attacks were known throughout the galaxy, but usually only desperate species use such tactics, and only as a last resort. These humans have used suicide missions as opening moves. Deploy the requested reinforcements, Emperor Kethver decided. But add additional support vessels. I want this ended quickly. The 4th and 7th battle fleets departed for Earth within 6 hours. 150 ships, carrying the most advanced weapons in the Zilithian arsenal. Enough firepower to destroy entire planets. They arrived at Earth to find a completely changed battlefield. Captain Rexdal's fleet was no longer in orbit around the planet. The ships had retreated to the outer edge of the solar system, maintaining maximum distance from Earth while still blockading the system. Several vessels showed significant damage. What happened here? Demanded Admiral Tethkor, commander of the 4th Fleet. Rexdal's face appeared on the communication screen, looking exhausted. The humans have escalated, Admiral. They are no longer using conventional forces. Explain. New types of soldiers. They appear from nowhere, strike without warning, and disappear before we can respond. They use tactics that should be impossible. Admiral Tethker reviewed the recent battle reports. In the past week, human forces had conducted 17 successful raids against Zilithian positions. But the methods described in the reports made no sense. Captain, this report claims humans attacked our base on the planet's moon by emerging from underground tunnels. The moon has no atmosphere. How did they survive long enough to dig tunnels? We do not know, Admiral. They wore primitive pressure suits, but the construction methods are beyond our understanding. Another report described an attack on a Zilithian communication station. Humans infiltrated this facility by disguising themselves as our own personnel. How did they acquire Zilithian uniforms and identification? They killed our soldiers and took their equipment. But Admiral, they modified the uniforms to fit their different body structure in less than 6 hours. Then they learned enough of our language to pass security checks. Admiral Tethker found this difficult to believe. Zilithians had 4 arms and were significantly larger than humans. Disguising a 2-armed human as a 4-armed alien should have been impossible. The reports continued to describe impossible scenarios. Humans had sabotaged Zilithian equipment using tools made from scrap metal. They had hijacked alien communication systems and used them to coordinate attacks. Most disturbing of all, they had captured several Zilithian officers and somehow convinced them to provide tactical information. How did they break our personnel in interrogation? Admiral Tethkor asked. They did not torture them, Admiral. They talked to them. Talked to them. The captured humans claimed they explained the situation logically. They convinced our officers that cooperation would result in better treatment after the war ended. Several of our people actually volunteered information. This was perhaps the most shocking revelation. Silithian military training included resistance to torture, drug interrogation, and psychological pressure. But nobody had prepared them for humans who simply asked politely for information and somehow made cooperation seem reasonable. Admiral, Rexdal continued, there is more. These new human forces do not operate like any military we have encountered. They have no visible chain of command. Small groups act independently, making their own decisions without consulting higher authority. That should make them easier to defeat. Uncoordinated forces cannot maintain effective resistance. That is what we thought, Admiral. But somehow their independent groups coordinate perfectly. They never interfere with each other's operations. They never waste effort attacking the same target twice. It is as if they share a collective intelligence. Admiral Tethkor studied tactical displays showing human force positions around Earth. The information was disturbing. Small groups of human soldiers had established hidden bases throughout the solar system. On asteroids, on the far side of the moon, even on some of the outer planets' moons. How did they transport personnel to these locations? Our sensors show no major ship movements. We believe they are using single-person craft, Admiral. Vessels so small, our sensors classify them as debris. The implications were staggering. These humans were conducting interplanetary military operations using equipment barely advanced enough for space travel. They were achieving results that should have required the resources of an entire star system. Admiral, incoming transmission from Earth's surface, the communication officer announced. Display it. A new human face appeared on the screen. This one wore different clothing than the previous soldiers. Black fabric, no visible insignia or rank markers. His eyes were cold and calculating. This is Colonel David Harrison, United States Special Operations Command. Your reinforcements have been noted and appropriate countermeasures are being implemented. We suggest you reconsider your invasion plans. The transmission ended before Admiral Tethkor could respond. Special Operations Command? He asked Rexdal. A new type of human military unit, Admiral. They began appearing after our reinforcements arrived. They are different from the previous soldiers. Different how? They fight like they know exactly what we are going to do before we do it. Emperor Kethver paced his throne room with growing frustration. Reports from Earth continued to arrive every few hours, each one more disturbing than the last. 200 Zilithian ships now surrounded the human planet, yet the situation was getting worse. Not better. Summon Admiral Tethkor immediately, he commanded. The holographic projector activated, showing the Admiral on the bridge of his flagship. Behind him, status displays flickered with damage reports from multiple vessels. Your Majesty, the Admiral began, the humans have escalated again. They are now conducting operations deep inside our fleet formations. How is that possible? You have 200 ships providing overlapping sensor coverage. They are using techniques that bypass our detection systems, Your Majesty. Yesterday, human soldiers appeared inside the engine room of the battleship Dominance. They had somehow traveled through space without vessels, entered our ship through the exhaust ports, and planted explosives throughout critical systems. Emperor Kethver's forearms gestured in disbelief. Through the exhaust ports? Those channels are filled with plasma hot enough to vaporize metal. Yes, Your Majesty. We cannot explain how they survived. When we reviewed security footage, the humans appeared to be wearing only standard pressure suits. The Emperor sat heavily on his throne. Nothing about this war made sense anymore. Admiral, I am sending you a direct order. I want you to capture one of their leaders alive. A general, an admiral, someone with authority to negotiate surrender terms. We have been attempting to do so, Your Majesty, but we cannot locate their command structure. What do you mean you cannot locate it? Admiral Tethker hesitated before answering. Your Majesty, we have identified over 300 different human military units operating in this system. Each unit has different equipment, different tactics, and different objectives. But we cannot find any central command coordinating their actions. That is impossible. No military force can function without leadership. That is what we thought, Your Majesty. But observe this. The Admiral activated a tactical display showing human force movements over the past week. Each colored line represents a different unit. Notice how they never interfere with each other, never attack the same target, never waste resources on redundant operations. Emperor Kethfer studied the display. The pattern was perfect, too perfect for random chance, but too chaotic for central control. Perhaps their leaders are hidden on their planet's surface, the Emperor suggested. We thought so too, Your Majesty. We attempted to contact Earth's political leaders directly. The response was unexpected. Admiral Tethker activated a recorded message. A human face appeared, older than the soldiers they have been fighting, wearing formal clothing instead of military gear. This is President Elizabeth Torres of the United States of America. I have been informed of your request to negotiate with Earth's military leaders. I am not a military leader. I am an elected civilian official. Command authority for this conflict has been delegated to our professional military officers. If you wish to discuss terms of engagement, please contact them directly. The message ended. Emperor Kethfer stared at the empty screen in confusion. Their political leaders refused to negotiate? No, Your Majesty. They claim they have no authority over military operations. They say the soldiers we have been fighting are the actual decision makers. The soldiers we have been fighting are low-ranking personnel, sergeants and corporals. Admiral Tethker activated another recording. This one showed a human in combat gear, dirt on his face, weapon in his hands. He was clearly on a battlefield, with explosions visible in the background. This is Brigadier General Marcus Webb, United States Army. I understand you wish to discuss surrender terms. Unfortunately, I'm somewhat busy at the moment organizing defensive operations. If you can wait approximately 6 hours, I should be available for conversation after we finish securing the sector. The Emperor watched in stunned silence as the human general cut the transmission to return to active combat. This is their general? He looks like a common soldier. Yes, Your Majesty. We have since learned that human military leaders participate directly in combat operations. They command from the front lines, not from secure facilities. Another recording activated automatically. A human woman in naval uniform stood on what appeared to be the bridge of a ship under attack. This is Admiral Sarah Mitchell, United States Navy. I'm currently coordinating fleet operations against your forces in the Pacific Ocean. While I appreciate your interest in negotiation, I must point out that you are currently losing this war. Perhaps you should be the ones considering surrender. Emperor Kethfer rose from his throne, his forearms trembling with emotion. These are not generals. These are warriors pretending to be leaders. Your Majesty, our intelligence analysis suggests otherwise. We have monitored human communications for weeks. These individuals are making strategic decisions for entire military branches. The sergeants we dismissed as low-ranking soldiers are actually commanding officers responsible for thousands of troops. The implication slowly dawned on the Emperor. You are telling me that their entire command structure consists of leaders who personally engage in combat? Yes, Your Majesty. And there is more disturbing news. Continue. We finally managed to capture a high-ranking human officer alive. Colonel Michael Rodriguez, United States Marines. Would you like to hear his interrogation? The Emperor nodded, dreading what he would learn. A new recording began. It showed a human male sitting calmly in his Zilithian detention cell. Despite being captured, he showed no fear. When the interrogator asked about human military strategy, his response was shocking. "Your problem is that you don't understand what you're fighting," the Marine colonel said calmly. "You think we're an undisciplined mob because we don't follow your patterns. You're wrong. We're the most disciplined military force you've ever encountered." "Explain your command structure," the Zilithian interrogator demanded. "Every soldier is trained to think independently. Every sergeant can make lieutenant decisions. Every lieutenant can make captain decisions. When you kill our leaders, we don't collapse, we adapt. The private becomes a sergeant. The sergeant becomes a lieutenant. Our entire military philosophy is built around the principle that leadership comes from competence, not rank." The interrogator pressed further. "Who gives you orders?" "Everyone and no one. My commanding general gives me objectives, not methods. How I accomplish those objectives is my decision. My sergeants have the same freedom. This confuses you because your leaders give detailed orders that must be followed exactly. This system should create chaos." The human colonel smiled. "It should. But we train together, we trust each other, and we share the same values. We don't need orders to tell us the right thing to do." The recording ended. Emperor Kethver sat in stunned silence for several minutes. "Admiral," he finally said, "what are our current casualties?" 17 ships destroyed, 43 ships with significant damage, over 8,000 personnel killed or captured. "And human casualties?" "Unknown, Your Majesty. We have destroyed many of their surface installations, but their personnel seem to disappear whenever we attack. We estimate minimal losses." Emperor Kethver closed his 4 eyes and tried to process this information. The Zilithian Empire had fought wars for 3 centuries using superior technology and predictable tactics. They had always faced enemies who fought the same way, with rigid command structures, centralized decision-making, and leaders who stayed safely away from danger. These humans represented something entirely different. Their leaders were warriors. Their warriors were leaders. Their military operated like a living organism, adapting instantly to changing conditions. "Your Majesty," Admiral Tethker said quietly, "there is one more thing you should know." "What?" The human colonel asked me a question before we ended the interrogation. "What question?" "He asked why our emperor sends others to die for ideas he wouldn't die for himself." For the first time in his long reign, Emperor Kethver had no answer. The Zilithian War Council met in emergency session for the 4th time in 10 days. Emperor Kethver looked exhausted as he reviewed the latest battle reports from Earth. The numbers were becoming impossible to ignore. 31 ships destroyed, 67 damaged beyond combat effectiveness, 12,000 casualties. General Vextar read from his display. "Your Majesty, we are losing this war." The words hung in the air like a curse. In 3 centuries of expansion, no one had ever spoken those words in the Imperial throne room. "How many reinforcements can we deploy?" The Emperor asked. Commander Zilthik consulted her tactical computer. "The 1st and 3rd battle fleets are available, Your Majesty, but deploying them would leave our core worlds defenseless. And based on current casualty rates, continue. Even with our entire military, we might not be able to subdue Earth. These humans adapt to every strategy we employ. When we attack their ships, they hide among asteroids. When we hunt them in space, they strike from their planet. When we blockade their world, they appear inside our own vessels." Emperor Kethvar stood and walked to the great window overlooking his capital city. Billions of Zilithians lived peaceful lives under his protection, trusting that their military would keep them safe. Now that safety was threatened by a single planet they had dismissed as primitive. Options? He asked quietly. Complete planetary destruction, General Vextar suggested. We have planet-killer weapons. We could sterilize Earth entirely. And accomplish what? We lose all the resources that planet could provide. We destroy 8 billion potential workers. And we announce to the galaxy that the Zilithian Empire destroys what it cannot conquer. Withdraw, Your Majesty, Commander Zilthik said carefully. The word was almost treasonous. Zilithian forces had never retreated from any conquest. But the alternative was the potential destruction of their entire military. Contact Admiral Tethkor, the Emperor decided. Order him to request a ceasefire and negotiate terms. The message reached Earth's solar system within hours. Admiral Tethkor reviewed his orders with growing relief. His fleet was barely functional after weeks of human attacks. Many ships operated with skeleton crews, their personnel either dead or too injured to serve. Communications. Broadcast a ceasefire request on all human frequencies, he ordered. The response came faster than expected. This is General Marcus Webb, United States Army, currently commanding Joint Earth Defense Forces. We acknowledge your ceasefire request. Representatives will meet your delegation at the following coordinates. Admiral Tethkor studied the coordinates with surprise. The humans wanted to meet aboard a neutral vessel, a captured Zilithian transport ship that had been disabled early in the conflict. Sir, should we not insist on meeting aboard our own vessel? Asked his tactical officer. At this point, Lieutenant, we negotiate on their terms. The shuttle carrying the Zilithian delegation approached the meeting point with extreme caution. The disabled transport ship floated in space between Earth and the Moon, its hull scarred by battle damage. Human ships surrounded it, not the primitive vessels they had expected, but sleek craft that had somehow been constructed during the war. How did they build those ships so quickly? Admiral Tethkor wondered aloud. Intelligence suggests they converted existing civilian vessels and mining equipment, sir. They appear to be extremely resourceful. The shuttle docked with the transport ship. Admiral Tethkor and his diplomatic team entered the airlock, uncertain what to expect. Would they meet with human politicians, finally willing to discuss surrender? The airlock opened to reveal a conference room that had been hastily repaired. Around a metal table sat 6 humans, all wearing military uniforms. All carrying weapons. None looked like diplomats. Admiral Tethkor asked a human woman with short gray hair and countless scars on her hands. I'm General Sarah Mitchell, United States Navy. Please, take a seat. The Zilithian delegation sat across from the humans. Admiral Tethkor studied their faces, looking for signs of defeat or desperation. Instead, he saw calm confidence. We are prepared to discuss terms for your surrender. Admiral Tethkor began, following standard negotiation protocols. General Mitchell raised an eyebrow. I think there's been a misunderstanding, Admiral. We didn't request this meeting to surrender. We're here to accept your surrender. That is impossible. We still have over 100 functional warships. And we have 8 billion humans who are just getting started, replied a man wearing desert camouflage. I'm Colonel David Harrison, Special Operations. Admiral, you came to our home expecting an easy conquest. Instead, you've given us our first real military challenge in decades. Admiral Tethkor felt a chill of fear. Challenge? Your technology is impressive, said another human, this one wearing the uniform of an Air Force officer. We've learned a lot from studying your captured equipment. We've also learned a lot about your tactics, your psychology, and your limitations. What are you saying? General Mitchell leaned forward. We're saying this war has been educational for us. We now know that galactic civilizations exist. We know they have faster-than-light travel. We know they have energy weapons and advanced materials. Most importantly, we know they can be beaten. The implications hit Admiral Tethkor like a physical blow. You intend to continue fighting? Admiral, look around this room, Colonel Harrison said calmly. Do any of us look like we've been defeated? Admiral Tethkor studied the human faces again. They were right. These were not the expressions of a beaten enemy. These were not the expressions of a beaten enemy. They looked like predators who had just discovered new hunting grounds. What do you want? He asked quietly. Complete withdrawal of all Zilithian forces from this solar system, General Mitchell stated. Non-aggression treaty guaranteeing Earth's independence. Exchange of prisoners. And one more thing? What? Technical specifications for faster-than-light travel. Admiral Tethkor's forearms spread in shock. That information is classified at the highest levels. Then I suggest you contact your Emperor, said the Air Force officer. Because those are our terms, non-negotiable. And if we refuse? The humans exchanged looks. Colonel Harrison answered with a slight smile. Then we continue this war, Admiral. But next time, we bring the fight to your planets. Admiral Tethkor realized with growing horror that the human was serious. These people were actually planning to attack Zilithian worlds. You have no interstellar capability. We didn't have space-based weapons either until you arrived. We didn't have stealth technology until we captured your ships. We didn't have energy shields until we reverse-engineered your equipment. General Mitchell stood up. Admiral, you've spent 3 months teaching us everything we need to know about galactic warfare. The meeting ended with Admiral Tethkor's promise to relay human terms to Emperor Kethver. As the Zilithian delegation returned to their shuttle, the Admiral reflected on what he had witnessed. The humans had not been defeated. They had been educated. 3 days later, Emperor Kethver signed the Treaty of Earth, the first document of surrender in Zilithian history. As he attached his seal to the agreement, he thought about the human colonel's question. Why do you send others to die for ideas you wouldn't die for yourself? The Emperor finally understood the answer. Because he was a ruler who commanded from safety, while the humans were warriors who led from the front. Because he represented a civilization that conquered through superior technology, while they represented a species that conquered through superior will. The Zilithian fleet departed Earth's solar system in defeat, carrying with them a terrible realization. Somewhere in the galaxy, a species had evolved that treated impossible odds as merely another Tuesday at the office. Behind them, 8 billion humans began building their first interstellar vessels. Led by generals who would personally pilot them into battle, the galaxy would never be the same.